Tom, I'm looking at the first three headlines here, and I'm thinking to myself, and I think I mentioned this earlier today to Jim, it seems to me that the CAQ has just stepped up the level of arrogance in the last couple of days. So you have Geneviève Guilbeault today saying they're not going to help Montreal as far as they're paying their housing bills, or public transit bills, rather. Legault telling unions, so a day ago he said, oh, don't worry, we have a nice deal coming on Sunday. Today telling them not to hold the public hostage. And then you have our Minister for Housing blaming the opposition if her bill doesn't pass. What's going on here?
The wheels have fallen off the CAQ Kart. I mean, it's as simple as that. Ever since they lost that by-election in Jean Talon, Legault has completely lost the plan. He can't follow anything for 2 seconds. The whole bit about going after the English universities, he's looking for a way out of that right now because it was so harebrained as a scheme. It was transparent. I had a long chat with the minister responsible, Pascal Derry, couldn't explain any of it. It was coming up with these weird excuses about, the number of Anglophones and the threat to French language. And it didn't make any sense. Even the bit about taking the tuition and then sending it over to the French side, even that didn't make sense. There's a great analysis. Anybody who hasn't had time to read it, please read it in today's La Presse. The analysis by Vincent Brousseau-Pouliot. It is outstanding. He did a great job with it. So everybody who's looked at this thing has called malarkey on Legault. It's just so transparent that he was terrified of the PQ passing him on the nationalist front. He was just coming up with whatever he could to make life miserable for the English-speaking community. And then lo and behold, we had all six living former premiers of the province of Quebec write him a very, serious, straight-up letter saying, you will be destroying centers of excellence in healthcare, and aren't you supposed to be all about taking care of healthcare? Dubé seemed a little bit sensitive to the plea. Legault, being arrogant, simply said, I'm not going to listen to anything that they have to say. I've got this great plan that my bureaucrats have had on their shelves for decades. Nobody's ever listened to it because there are parts of the plan that don't make any sense and won't work. But you know what? I don't care. And this has been the Legault method from day one. Didn't like the fact that his education department, he used to be the minister years back, couldn't tell, the school boards what to do. Get rid of the school boards, and chop off some heads. That's the way we're going to do it. You talked about the housing minister. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable that she's still a minister after what she did at the end of the last session. And we were all to calling her Marie Antoinette because she said, well, if people have trouble, with the rent, the problem is that they haven't bothered to buy a house yet. Yeah. And you just say, okay, where did they go and get them? How did she get elected? She got elected because there was a wave. And how did she make it to cabinet? Well, probably represented the right area, and there was a lack of people from that area. It's amazing that she's still there. So what you were quoting is exactly right. She said that, you're going to have it on your conscience. You're going to have it on your shoulders. If people have trouble with the renewal of their rents and with signing leases and so forth, it's going to be your fault. This just in, you're part of the government. You have a massive majority. You've done an incredibly lousy job. Your legislation doesn't make sense. You're the one who has had to admit that you have to rewrite almost every single article, and you're saying that is the fault of the opposition parties? It's bonkers.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I'm sitting here shaking my head thinking you're right. I mean, I kind of agree with you. They're kind of watching the wheels fall off their bus here, but
how has this gone on for so long? That's what I'm kind of marveling at. We're watching the unraveling of the Legault government, but then I'm finding we've been in this situation for how many years now? Are we up to 6 years now? I don't know.
He's in his sixth year, but we're watching the unraveling of Legault. And this week he was mumbling in the hallway as he passed the journalists on 2 occasions. One was with regard to the budget of the first year of Nirvana, i.e. an independent Quebec. And he, of course, had said the exact same thing when he was a sovereignist, avowed sovereignist. Now he says, well, not so much. But I don't really believe that, never have. So he's in the hallway, just starts mumbling, how insulting can they get with me? They're comparing me to Jean Chrétien and Jean Charest. It was the most bizarre moment. But then he did the same thing. I mean, he starts mumbling at the cameras and mumbling at the microphones over and over again every time something doesn't go his way. He goes after those 6 former premiers, is totally arrogant with them, says he doesn't care what they say. So I talked to some former premiers. It doesn't matter. I'm sticking with my plan. It's an extraordinary circumstance, and I think that it has everything to do with the fact that Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon is about the age that Legault was when he started in politics, full of energy, full of beans, just always full, pushing. Legault doesn't have any attachment to Canada. It's always a bean counter approach, right? What does he say? He says, well, we don't have the votes, and we're not going to make it. So let's do what we can with Canada to get back powers and immigration and language, and we're sort of stuck here. PSPP, I couldn't disagree with him more, and I don't believe a single line of his imaginary budget, but he's got energy. He believes what he's doing, and he's communicating that, and he's getting a lot of people back on side. So Legault sees this as a real threat, and he comes across now more and more as the type of guy who, just out of personal interest, decided that he would renounce, at least publicly, his sovereignist tendencies, and now it's coming back to haunt him.
I wonder, and I asked this question as well, is the opposition doing enough to basically take advantage of what we're seeing here in the CAQ right now, this disorganization, this disarray, if you want to call it that?
There are two parties doing well. The Liberals are doing well. Marc Tanguay has been scoring. Yeah, I've been critical enough of him when I thought it was deserved. I will say Marc Tanguay has been doing a very good job. He was out there front and center on the tuition thing with the English universities. He was very strong on that. He's come out any number of times in the past week. He's been doing his job as leader of the Quebec Liberals, and I think he deserves credit for it. Interestingly enough, the PSPP, because they only have 4 seats out of 125, they don't even get a question every day. But Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon has mastered the art of driving François Legault crazy. And he just drives him up the wall because he's exactly what Legault wanted to be 25 years ago, and he doesn't have anything to show for it. I also think that there's a common thread, there's a common denominator between Legault's attack on the English universities, his shameless attack on the English universities, and him telling all six former premiers, 3 PQ, 3 Liberal, telling them all to take a hike. And it's almost as if he prefers mediocrity to excellence. What's his beef about McGill? He doesn't have one. There's not a shred of evidence that English universities are decreasing, the French in Montreal. There's nothing backs that up. It's just pure prejudice. And we've lived his prejudice, and we've lived the racism of his immigration minister. We've been through this any number of times. But he's trying to push this thesis. It's not working. Nobody believes him. And every button he's been trying to punch on his dashboard, because it's all red flashing lights telling him that he's in trouble, nothing happens when he pushes those lights. But the common thread between going after the English universities and telling the former premiers to take a hike is this sense that excellence, who needs that when we can have mediocrity? And believe me, with the CAQ, we get lots of mediocrity.
I was going to ask you, and I know we've said this before, I think we all sort of in the back of our mind living here begin to understand this. The CAQ has no great love for Montreal. It never has. It just seems to me, Tom, maybe it's just becoming more obvious now when I hear things like, we're not going to help with your housing problem, we're not going to help you with your public transit problem. It's becoming much more obvious, is it not?
Yeah, everything about François Legault is we, they. That's why I always compare him to Maurice Duplessis, who was the great divider. He would go out after religious minorities. Well, what did Legault do? He went after religious minorities. He would go after les Anglais. Guess what? He's doing the same thing. It's the same fight over and over again. It's a very old Québécois fight, and it's being led now by a guy who emulates Maurice Duplessis in many, many different ways. And he's constantly pushing. Yes, he thinks he's going to continue to rule the roost in the regions, but what's going to happen is he's going to start bleeding votes massively over to the Parti Québécois in the outlying areas. The Liberals are going to continue to hold their seats in Montreal. If they ever come up with a leader who can actually do something, they have every reason to believe that they can form the next government, by the way. I know that everybody's just going to laugh, so they're at 4% or 5% in the polls with Francophones, but when people look for a viable replacement for Legault, they're not going to look at Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon and his three musketeers. They're going to be looking at an established party that is the official opposition that can pull this off, recruit candidates at the highest level, but it begins with finding a leader. Now, I still believe that their decision to put that off until 2025 is completely nuts. I don't see any advantage to them. People have candidly told me on background that the problem is anybody that they approach is saying, that's too long, I won't leave my job, I won't do anything else. Well, if that's what they think about it, then don't go after them. Find somebody else who actually believes that this is a mission, setting Quebec back on a track where minorities are respected, where we take care of the economy, where we don't shoot ourselves in the foot by killing centers of excellence like the Montreal Heart Institute and going after great institutions like our universities. Let's get somebody who actually believes that Canada is a tremendous place worth fighting for, and doesn't do it, always, shuffling backwards. Oh, well, I'd love to separate, but I can't. Let's find somebody who actually believes in this amazing country that we're in and can talk about that and articulate it and connect with people's hearts. That's what we need right now. But the Liberals have decided to wait so long. I think that they might be a spent force by the time the thing rolls around, and that would be a tragedy.
Absolutely. I'm also starting to wonder if Legault is going to last another 2 years until the next election. We shall see.
Just watching him, he is so flustered. He does not look like his heart's in it at all. Look at this thing today. He says that he doesn't want the nurses. He doesn't want the nurses holding Quebecers hostage.
Yeah,
he and his health minister, just a few months ago, could not find enough words to praise Quebec's nurses for what they had done during the pandemic. And now he has the temerity to say that they're the ones who might be holding Quebec hostage. That's a loaded word, especially in the current context, and he uses it intentionally. It's shameful.
Tom Mulcair, every morning, 7:40 with Andrew Carter. Tom, thanks so much.
Take good care.